Börtönéből szabadult saslelkem, ha a rónák végtelenjét látom.
How hard is Hungarian? In my previous video, I showed the internet wisdom that Hungarian is the hardest language in the world is incorrect, and I provided the data to prove it. In this video, I want to share my own experience and look at what is hard and what is very easy in Hungarian. First, my background. Although I did speak some Hungarian as a small child, it was discouraged by my parents once I started school. And basically, I ignored Hungarian for the next 50 years. In the intervening time, I did learn languages though, about a dozen, to various levels, but just not Hungarian. Once I decided to do a full immersion for a month at summer school in Hungary and learn my heritage language, I spent a year preparing, with books, tapes, CDs, films, whatever I could get my hands on. Once I arrived, my first shock was the written placement test was in Hungarian. Duh. But I managed and I passed to A2, which was great. Only I flunked the oral. So I had the next 4 weeks to bring my spoken Hungarian and listening comprehension up to speed. I managed it, passed the A2 officially and started on B1. With 120 hours of class time and not that much self-study. Great. So next year I returned to finish B1. This year's shock was that my teachers had suddenly lost their ability to speak English. All classes were in Hungarian, and we were encouraged to speak only Hungarian on campus. The next unexpected hurdle was I had to increase my self-study time to keep up. And remember, we had classes from 9 to 5. But B1 had dropped most of the heritage speakers, and now the teachers were teaching mostly young language students. They were fast and bright, and most already spoke several other languages fluently. But a month and I completed B1, and the following year another month finished off B2. This is still below the FSI's general professional proficiency, which they say takes 1,100 class hours. I've done about a third of that and was looking at C1. Pat on the back. My old brain was still working. But C1 is a different land. The vocab needed is immense. In theory, only about 8,000 words. But that's base words. Not inflections, not derived words. So something like mosh, limosh, kimosh, falmosh, moshagot is just one word with 5 different uses and meanings. In C1 we had some explicit vocab and grammar teaching, but mostly we learned through content. For example, sayings, proverbs, song lyrics, films, and each other. We gave presentations to our classmates on anything from geography to cultural practices, historical figures, and in one case, the rule of law. No, I didn't complete C1 in a month. In all, I've now done 4 months of formal study at a C1 level, and I'm still not finished. And realistically, I'm not sure I'll ever make it. I have now dropped down to a few hours of conversation a week, a folk song class, and a class on Hungarian history and culture, in Hungarian, of course. What is easy about the Hungarian language and what is hard? The spelling is very easy once you get to hear the vowels. There are 44 letters and each has only one sound unless it's subject to assimilation of you, and that's regular. There are a few hard sounds, 4 distinct U's, 4 O's, and the GY takes a while to get consistently. But nothing like the sounds you have to produce in Arabic or the tones in Mandarin. Another plus is there's no grammatical gender, even for the third person pronoun. So no he or she, just So no requirement to match adjectives or articles like French or German. Or memorise what gender a noun takes. There is, however, levels of formality, as with many other European languages. Hungarian has 3 and a bit, with 2 formal second-person pronouns, and maga, but at least they take the normal third-person conjugation, so there isn't an extra conjugation to learn. There's also a special polite construction, which I've heard of but never really come across. And you've got the extremely formal language that you'll find if you ever have to interact with the Hungarian government. Yes, the verbs are inflected, like most European languages. In Hungarian, a single verb can have over 80 forms. But it's reasonably regular once you know what type of verb it is, and there's only 9 really irregular verbs, so they're easy to learn. A peculiarity of Hungarian is they have an indefinite and definite conjugation for most verbs, and you need to know when to use which one. But again, the rules are pretty simple. Harder is learning which case a specific verb takes, so you can not only correctly inflect the noun, but also decide whether you need to consider whether the definite conjugation needs to be used. Did I mention that the nouns have lots of cases? But they're all suffixes in one of 3 forms. The form depends on vowel harmony. Vowel harmony is an important concept in Hungarian and is based on whether the vowels in a word are front or back. The type of word, whether it's front or back vowel, then determines the form of the prefixes, suffixes and affixes that are applied to that word. Hungarian treats space and movement in space differently to English. This affects the form of the verb, noun and pronoun, and it's both literal and figurative. In class we spent 2 weeks off and on with this, and that's the major part of 60 hours, and many English speakers still struggled, while speakers of some other languages were bored after a couple of days, saying it was all pretty obvious. Another hard concept for English speakers is the word order, which is flexible but not free. The word order is controlled by a concept of focus, and in a simple sentence with a subject, object and verb, in theory, there are 6 possibilities, each of which has a slightly different meaning. Sentences can be very long too. Run-on sentences are normal, and multi-clause sentences are considered to be a mark of good writing. Once in a woman's magazine, I spotted a 79-word sentence. Just a normal article. We're not talking about a high-level academic paper or literature. Parsing such sentences can take some time. Not only are the sentences potentially long, so are the words. In addition to the inflections to show the word's function within a sentence, you can add prefixes to change the meaning, suffixes to change the part of speech and the meaning, and within a word you can add an affix to also change what a word means. For me though, the hardest aspect was vocabulary. Hungarian has a similar size vocab to English. That is, it's huge. And there is very little overlap with English, as Hungarian is not an Indo-European language. With French or German, which are, you can often guess the meaning and have a good chance of being right. But not in Hungarian, which is Finno-Uralic, and doesn't even share much vocab with its nearest relative, Finnish. Just the vowel harmony and some grammatical concepts. However, not only do you have to remember all the meanings, but if the word is a verb, also what case it takes for a specific meaning. And verbs and nouns have occasional gotchas, which led me to buy a dictionary specifically to work out which correct word form you need when you inflect. However, native speakers will still understand you if you get this wrong. A bit like saying, me shop go in English. Something that isn't inherently difficult with Hungarian, but rather learning Hungarian itself, is the limited resources available. With any language past phrasebook parroting, a good teacher is a must. Yes, you can learn the grammar on your own if you know what you're doing and you know what you need to learn. Or you have an access to a good, organised course. But English does not map that closely to Hungarian. You need to know what you don't know. Since my initial attempts at learning on my own, several apps have become available. But few offer Hungarian, and I've not come across an app yet that will take you much past A2, which is where I got with my textbook anyway. Once you have the basics, one of the many books called A Practical Hungarian Grammar, I suggest the Szita and Görbe one, will take you a bit further, allowing you to work in Hungarian rather than translating. But you need to talk. I did try some paid teachers online, but several were nothing more than Hungarian speakers who thought they could earn some easy money. Ditto tandem partners. That's when you exchange half an hour's English help and speaking practice for half an hour in Hungarian. I've found a couple of good ones of each in the end, but only after a lot of failures. If you can get to Hungary, the summer schools run by the universities are a good option. Look for one with a structured course and enough students to be able to offer classes at specific levels. For example, each CFR level, there should be at least 2 classes on offer, because there's actually A1.1 and A1.2. I can recommend the one at Debrecen. To sum up, learning Hungarian to a level where you can operate independently is not impossible if you have access to good resources and are willing to put in the hours. 1,100 professional class hours according to the FSI, and at least double that in self-study. But it's harder than, say, French or German, and way harder than something like Dutch or Spanish. If this video has given you some useful pointers, please leave a like for the algorithm. And feel free to share your journey learning Hungarian in the comments below.
Itt boruljon rám a szemfödél. Itt domborodjék a sír is fölöttem.